In September 2008, Bobby Siegel arrived at his Lehman Brothers trading desk in Canary Wharf before 6 in the morning and left the same day carrying his career in a cardboard box. He had sensed enough trouble ahead to drain his office vending machine card, 300 pounds worth of chocolate, before the bank filed for bankruptcy and the card became worthless. That image of workers leaving Lehman with boxed belongings became one of the defining visuals of a financial crisis that wiped out millions of jobs and triggered the longest recession since World War II. In 2026, several of the people most responsible for monitoring financial system stability are saying, with varying levels of caution, that some of those early warning conditions are appearing again, in different forms in different parts of the system. This video will walk through what those signals are, who is raising them, where the disagreements lie, and what the realistic range of outcomes looks like. The most direct parallel being drawn by analysts is in the private credit market. Before 2008, the crisis was seeded in U.S. mortgage-backed securities, complex, leveraged instruments that were not fully understood until they started failing. In 2007, funds at Bear Stearns and BNP Paribas either froze investor withdrawals or liquidated entirely after their mortgage investments deteriorated. Those were the early signs of what became a system-wide credit crunch, as banks stopped lending to each other out of fear about counterparty exposure. In 2026, a structurally similar dynamic is visible in private credit, a sector that grew from negligible size to approximately $2.5 trillion over the past 15 to 20 years. Private credit funds operate outside the traditional banking system, providing loans directly to companies, and they expanded significantly after the 2008 crisis, precisely because new banking regulations forced conventional banks to be more conservative. Firms, including BlackRock, Blackstone, Apollo, and Blue Owl, have all faced demands for billions of dollars in withdrawals from private credit funds in recent months, with some restricting investors' ability to exit. Sarah Breeden, Deputy Governor of the Bank of England with specific responsibility for financial stability, has described the situation in concrete terms. She has noted that private credit carries leverage, opacity, complexity, and interconnections with the broader financial system. Characteristics, she has said explicitly, echo those of the instruments at the center of the 2008 crisis. More specifically, she has flagged that a significant portion of the money lent by private credit funds has itself been borrowed, creating what she describes as layers of leverage on leverage on leverage. The risk is that losses at one layer amplify through the others faster than regulators or investors can track. The energy dimension adds a separate but related layer of risk. Oil prices have risen more than 50% since before the current Iran conflict began, crossing $100 per barrel. Fatih Birol, chief executive of the International Energy Agency, has described the closure of the Strait of Hormuz as the greatest energy security crisis in history, more consequential, in his assessment, than the Arab oil embargo of 1973, the Iranian Revolution of 1979, and the Ukraine-related energy disruption of 2022 combined. Before 2008, Brent crude went from around $50 per barrel at the start of 2007 to $100 by year-end, eventually peaking at $147 in July 2008. In today's money, that peak is equivalent to roughly $190. Current prices, while elevated, remain below that threshold. The third variable Breeden has identified is artificial intelligence valuations. More than $2 trillion has poured into AI-related investments. 37% of the total value of the S&P 500 is now concentrated in 7 companies, including NVIDIA, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon, all of them major AI spenders. That concentration means that index tracking funds, which hold the retirement savings of millions of individuals, and pension funds, carry significant AI exposure whether or not their holders are aware of it. The dot-com bubble, which peaked in March 2000, offers a precedent. The Nasdaq fell nearly 80% between March 2000 and October 2002, and that collapse contributed to a recession in 2001. Now consider two scenarios. If the Strait of Hormuz situation reaches a negotiated resolution within the next several months, oil prices stabilize, and private credit stress remains contained to individual funds rather than spreading system-wide, the current period looks in retrospect like a stress episode rather than a crisis. Stock markets, which are currently near all-time highs and appear to be pricing in an eventual peace outcome, would be validated. The financial system absorbs the pressure without a broader breakdown. If, however, multiple risks materialize simultaneously, a prolonged energy shock, a loss of confidence in private credit that triggers a wider withdrawal cycle, and a correction in AI-linked equity valuations, the question is not just economic severity, but policy capacity. In 2008, UK government debt was below 50% of national income. It is now close to 100% after successive interventions for bank bailouts, pandemic wage support, and energy subsidies. Elarian has described this as a fire brigade that has depleted its water supply across consecutive crises. The IMF has used the phrase eroded policy space to describe the same constraint. The additional factor is international coordination. Gordon Brown, who helped lead the 2008 global response, has consistently argued that coordinated action among major governments, including the November 2008 Washington Summit and the April 2009 London G20, was what prevented the crisis from becoming a depression. The IMF has noted explicitly that international cooperation is weaker now than in previous years. Whether governments with active disagreements over trade, military alliances, and territorial questions could replicate that coordination under pressure is the question that Breeden, Elarian, and others are raising without yet having a clear answer. Watch for two things. First, whether private credit stress at firms like Blackstone and Apollo remains isolated or begins spreading into connected parts of the financial system. That transmission is what separates a sector-specific problem from a systemic one. Second, whether the Strait of Hormuz situation moves toward resolution quickly enough to prevent oil prices from reaching the levels that preceded the last major financial disruption. Both variables are moving simultaneously, and the interaction between them is what determines the scale of what comes next.